What would be the worst thing to hear as you are going under anesthesia before heart surgery? I had been in an accident and was just waking from what was supposed to be minor surgery when I realized there was a commotion going on and I was at the center of it. I just remember hearing someone saying it's not working. It's not working. And then someone else said, put him back under. The next time I awoke I found I had undergone several hours of surgery to repair arteries in my sinuses. Apparently I had had a nosebleed that nearly killed me. This has nothing to do with heart surgery, of course. I did wake up halfway through my wisdom teeth surgery and they only got one side done. I woke up and started freaking out and they told me to leave and not come back, so I had to go somewhere else to get the other two done. Edit, just to clarify, I must have had some kind of drug interaction with my daily medication, so that's probably why I woke up, and I disclosed everything with them before the surgery. I don't remember anything other than being so f***ed up and panicking. This sort of thing happened to me too. I just commented in detail about what exactly happened, but basically I didn't fall all the way asleep, and as I was counting I heard them say he's not doing well, and that fully woke my brain up, but my body was still all rubbery. I tried to scream and thrash around so they knew I was awake, but I could barely move. They did give me more drugs or something cause I knocked out, but when I came to I was hysterical immediately upon waking, even though it took a few minutes for my memory to catch up. Horrifying. The surgeon was pissed at me too for behaving badly when I was all fucked up and thought something was wrong. I actually had the opposite of this once and it was almost as bad. 10 years ago I was waiting to go under for an endoscopic third ventriculostomy, ETV, for hydrocephalus. It's basically a procedure to fit a small valve in the brain to allow spinal fluid to move, therefore reducing potentially dangerous pressure. I was sat in the bed contemplating my existence when the surgeon visited me to say, I've just set a new record for this, the last one only took 11 minutes. I was like, please take your time. Edit, just a quick one to say that I understand why the procedure needed to be quick. I just found his phrasing and timing to be a bit startling at the time, but funny when looking back, which thanks to his team I am able to do. I was an anesthesia resident in a case to perform a pericardiocentesis and pericardial window. Patient had lots of blood inside the sheath that surrounds the heart, which restricts the heart's ability to relax and fill and can be deadly. This is a really dangerous procedure to do under general anesthesia because if the patient stops breathing from the anesthetics, ventilator-delivered breaths could further exacerbate the heart filling problem and make the patient code. So basically we drain the blood with the patient awake and minimally sedated. We decided to put some music on for the patient to help him relax. He wanted hard rock, so we put on Metallica radio. The song that came on Pandora was Shot Through the Heart by Bon Jovi. Not making this up. We all had a good laugh, including the patient. He did well. Oh. I didn't know the name for that. I had that as a kid too. It led to some pretty painful complications when I got a vasectomy. That testicle had scarring, so he didn't actually cut the right thing the first time. He told me they cut something, but he wasn't sure if it was the right tube, which isn't a great thing to hear from someone handling your business. The surgeon was very stoic, like all surgeons, but afterward he actually got human for 3 seconds and complimented me on my pain tolerance, so that was nice at least. I ended up having to get knocked out to get it done properly. I'm a nurse anesthetist and would like to share something that happened to me the other week. The patient had to get an perianal abscess drained, abscess that basically between your ass cheeks. These patients are usually under general anesthesia and lying in prone position with their behind up in the air. This particular patient was a bit on the heavy side, they usually are, but instead of general anesthesia he had spinal anesthesia and was wide awake, similar to epidural anesthesia, paralyzed from their back down. The surgeon entered the OR, fully expecting the patient to be asleep. Went to the surgical area and shouted, "Would you look at the ass on this motherfucker?" Silence ensued. Before I stated that the patient is awake. Not another word was said during the operation. My friend had her placenta rupture when she was 8 months pregnant. She was bleeding profusely and the doctor was yelling at her in panic to take off her jeans, pulling them down as fast as he can because she had blood gushing down. Then they proceeded to throw her on the table because at this point the baby is drowning from swallowing the blood, and as she is falling asleep she hears the doctor say, "I am not sure if we can save either of them." The baby was born alive but died 10 days later from a stroke. My friend is alive but she still has arrhythmia from the stress and she can't talk about the baby. Oh my God, I finally have a relevant story. I was getting an endoscopy, which is a camera going into my throat for something, I can't remember what. I was on the hospital bed, waiting for the procedure to start, when the anesthesiologist starts putting a white liquid into a tube. I asked him, "Hey, what do you have there?" The doctor looked me square in the face and said, "Oh, it's just the stuff that killed Michael Jackson." I had time enough to remember saying "Wadash," and that's all I remember until I came to after the procedure. I saw the guy and through a cough said, "So, the stuff that killed MJ, huh?" He went white as a sheet and said, "Oh, you weren't supposed to remember that." When was a wee 18-year-old baby airman stationed at Ozan Air Base, I found out that my wisdom teeth needed to be removed. NBD, right? Well, prior to this soon-to-be horrifying experience, my knowledge of the state of healthcare had been shored up with all sorts of horror stories from the senior rank and file. Armed with a plethora of stories and firmly ignorant to the fact that I was being fucked with, I made my way to my appointment with a friend in tow to handle my high ass after the surgery. Upon arrival I was given the standard instructions. Okay, breath deeply, count back from 10, etc. Then, right as I'm about to pass out, I hear the nurse putting an 4 into my arm, say, "Oh shit." As I turned my head towards the sound, I witnessed a spurt of blood shoot out of my arm and thought, "Fuck, I'm gonna die," then promptly passed out. So as it turns out, when I woke up I was very high, very relieved to be alive, and possibly shed some tears. It was explained to me, as drool soaked my gauze-packed mouth and I contemplated existence, that it's quite common for blood to spurt out like that when you first stick an 4 into an arm. My nurse also enlightened me on the cause of her exclamation. She had gotten some of my blood on her scrubs. After that emotional roller coaster, my friend walked my high ass to the dorms, laughing at me most of the way back after I finished telling him of my near-death experience. Then we played COD and I took more happy pills. 10/10 would play again. Okay, true story. This happened to me about 7 years ago when I went for surgery to get a dead vein removed from my leg. I got pushed into the operation theater and the usher leaves with only the anesthesiologist in the room. The guy was of East Asian descent with a thick accent. This is relevant to the story. There's me laying on the bed when he asks the usual name, D.O.B, "You know why you're here?" and the like, before getting the injection ready to push into the tube that was in my left hand. Now up till this point, everything went as I expected. I've had a number of surgeries, so I just relax and let the professional peeps do their thing. He starts with the first injection and says something like, in the accent, "This one make sure you know sick." Second injection, he says, this one so you fall asleep. By the third injection I'm starting to fall asleep and my body starts to relax when I hear him say this one so you know feel sick. Oh no, oh no. No no Wong one, I give you twithe, I give you twithe. Flapping his arms, and, I, doze off. When I came to I didn't immediately remember it and was a few hours later when it hits me. I told my partner who just laughed like crazy. Surgery went okay and he did no harm other than a funny memory to remember the time. I recently had 2 surgeries a few weeks apart. The second time they were running behind so I had to wait. Ended up falling asleep in pre-op so they didn't wake me up for first. Was completely awake for the trip to the operating room. Anesthesiologists saw I had not received the first and cool so you'll remember this instant chills. Thought he meant the surgery but no. To me 5 minutes pass and I'm in post-op, glad that was the last thing I remembered. Besides infection my biggest fear was the rare being awake but paralyzed while in surgery. Okay, breathe, you can do this, first surgery, no problem. Come on, you're the man. The doctor. You're the doctor, man. They all said you'd never make it. They all said you'd make a terrible surgeon, that everything dies in your hands and anything you touch turns to shit. So what if you flunked out of gardening, huh? So what if you accidentally killed that 400-year-old redwood tree? It was 400 years old. Not exactly a spring chicken. More like deadwood, am I right? No. Wrong. Focus. Come on, doctor man, don't get distracted, we don't want another dead redwood situation here. Not that I'm ever allowed near a national park again. They won't let me be a tree surgeon, well how about a real surgeon? That'll show them. They all laughed at me. Well, who's laughing now, Mom? Who's laughing now? Okay, calm down. Remember what Guru Zamboni told you, positive energy begets positive outcomes. Become your spirit animal. Become the North American pickle trout. Be content with your fate, let whatever happens happen. Carpe diem, seize the carp, wait, is the patient still awake? I got into an accident while driving a motorcycle with my grandfather. Thankfully he wasn't injured but I broke my left arm's bone in the process and so they rushed me into the hospital. When we were at the hospital they asked me to wear an hospital gown without any clothes so my grandfather helped me wear the gown. He didn't even know how to wear the gown so he had it on backwards and he thought it was the right way. So when the doctor told me to go to the surgery room I was so embarrassed to go cause my hospital gown was on backwards and they could see my crotch. When the surgery started I was holding my non-broken arm on my crotch to block it so no one can see. There were like 4 doctors in the room, one was putting anesthesia on me and after I feel lightheaded I saw my non-broken hand uncover my crotch and so the doctors saw my crotch and before I lose consciousness there were like 3 doctors laughing at my crotch. I'm sorry but our regular heart surgeon is unavailable. The nurse says as she opens the door for a bald middle-aged doctor with a large syringe. Thankfully Dr. Reaper was here to step in, but he's requested to do the surgery alone. Dr. Reaper gives you an icy blue stare and taps the needle against his index. The nurse turns to leave the room and gives you some final words of encouragement, don't worry you'll be in good hands, he's the best at what he does. You manage a weak nod to the closing door and turn over to face the statuesque Dr. Reaper, who is now injecting the syringe into your fore. Before the anesthesia puts you under, you notice some blood on the collar of that wrinkled lab coat. The surgeon counting down slowly 10, 9, 8, getting quieter and closer to your face. It sounds strange at first, almost like she was talking with half a shot of whiskey still in her mouth. 7, 6, 5, at this point a few centimeters away, you feel the warmth of her breath blow gently behind your ear. She softly whispers 3, 2, 1. In her best Marilyn Monroe impression, while overly smacking her wet lips. Suddenly with a calamitous bated breath she tongues, "I will eat your heart." With eyes so crossed you suddenly murmur, "Wallet and watch," as you drift off into the blackness. Legend has it, if you survive, the first thing you hear when you wake up is a brief Kali Ma chanted by hundreds, if not thousands, of interns and residents over a consistent boil of craft American singles and surplus saline 4. Slowly but surely your eyes fade, and in the smoke you see Toadstool slurring, "E Prince Cess is in nada. Castle, dot. Okay, so I gotta tell this story. FCK it if my buddy sees LOL. Not open heart but surgery on his disc in his spine. So they are taking him to the back on a stretcher to prep for anesthesia, and he notices all the doctors have music coming from their areas. As he rolls past one he hears classical music. They keep going and another doc is playing opera. My buddy gets to his area and they are prepping him, and his doctor comes from the other office. Blasting Linkin Park. Rolling on the floor laughing, rolling on the floor laughing, rolling on the floor laughing, rolling on the floor laughing. He's all, "Yeah, got doctors playing opera and classical and my damn surgeons blaring Linkin Emo Park." He was like, "Lucky they already had me prepped." So I'm laughing the whole time and he's like, "What's so funny?" I say, "It could be worse." He asked, "How the EFF could it be worse?" I said, "At least it wasn't Kid Rock." Then fell over laughing, and the look on my buddy's face was priceless. But yeah, last thing before lights out was, "When my time comes, forget the wrong that I've done, help me leave behind some reason." Face with tears of joy. Let me tell you about the first time I went under for surgery. I was in to get my back operated on. The guy next to me was apparently the 1K frequent flyer of this hospital. He was going under to get some clots cleared out of most of his major veins. So there I am, hyperventilating about this, and the doc comes in to talk to this guy. And he asks, "Are you going to put enough anesthesia in me this time? Last time I woke up in the middle of the surgery. That scared me for sure." He then followed this up with, "The time before that my wife told me I died on the table and you guys had to put the paddles on me to revive me. But none of the doctors told me. I just woke up feeling much more sore than usual." The casualness with which he relayed both of those stories within a 3-minute conversation prompted me to immediately ask my nurse for Valium. Thankfully, she obliged and pushed in enough to take the edge off while I waited my turn. Not a fun experience while sitting alone in a hospital due to COVID measures. Wouldn't recommend that roommate anyway. True story, I was going in for shoulder surgery. The anesthesiologist came in looking at a chart, lifts up my right knee, marks an X on it with a marker and says, "We will get you in soon." I said, "Why did you put an X on my knee?" He says, "We are doing knee surgery." I looked him straight in the face and said, "Wrong chart, wrong patient." JE left, came back in a few minutes, said, "Sorry about that, we will have you in for shoulder surgery soon." Then when I was coming out of surgery and recovering, I remember seeing bright lights. I sat right up and heard, "Okay, okay, okay, we got him back." There was a team of nurses and DRS around me. They had blankets and portable heaters warming me up. I eventually found out that my body temp dropped really low, and that is why they had the heaters etc. on me. They did advise that if I ever had to go under again to ask for a nerve block, which unfortunately I had 3 more surgeries on that shoulder and had to ask for nerve blocks.